Is everybody there? Yeah.
Hmm.
My microphone okay? Yeah.
Yeah, it's sounding good, mate.
Hola, amigos. Yeah, it's dark because it's very late, but yeah, it's lovely. Thank you for asking.
Well, there you go. I mean, I can't win every argument, so at least a couple of them. Aye, so E3 this year. We always the who won type thing, and I mean it's never actually a competition for the gamers because we always come out on top regardless because we're always going to get the games that we want and there's always going to be something there that we want to play. So in respect to the actual gamers, we won. But in my opinion, I think Microsoft were the ones who knocked it out the park this year. What do you think?
I would say Bethesda.
Well, yeah, I mean, aye, Bethesda, aye, as a developer,
Or
sorry, start that again. As a developer, Bethesda probably did the best in my opinion.
mm,
They started off before the E3 conference. They got in early. Uh, they obviously showed off Fallout 4, which they'd been teasing for a couple of days beforehand anyway. Then they had Doom, which looks gorgeous. It looks so good.
yeah.
And then they showed off the Dishonored 2 as well, which I think looks fantastic.
hmm Another developer I think won it as well. Is right up there for me would be Ubisoft this year. Uh, they have a few surprising games that I didn't know was actually coming.
Yeah, they did. They
Um,
did have a couple of. They did have a couple of games that we weren't expecting to see. I mean, obviously the new Ghost Recon game that looks fantastic. That I was actually really surprised at that. It's probably the only Ubisoft game that I'm excited for because obviously I've done some testing on the games industry and I've already played a couple of the games. I'm not allowed to say which ones, but um, I'm not as excited for the games as I was before I started playing these tests as well because some of them aren't as good as I'm expecting. Or we were expecting them to be from the original trailers.
yeah, that For Honor, the new IP from Ubisoft looks amazing.
Yeah, I don't
Quite
know.
just like
I like the look of it, but it seems like a mix between um,
Dynasty.
games like Rise, the game that came out originally on, well, it's only on on the Xbox One, which is kind of it's just a hack and slash.
Yeah.
But it looks a mix between Rise and Dynasty Warriors.
Yes, yes. I actually
I'm not
played.
a big fan of the Dynasty Warriors games myself. It just seems as if it's the same crap over and over again. You get to a boss, you beat him, you start again at the next mission until the game's finished. Aye. Well, I've got it. I've just never got round to playing it. Well, that's the thing about the Dynasty Warriors games. They are easy to play because they're so simple in their mechanics. It's
Yeah.
just keep swinging your weapon until everybody falls down.
They're a hack and slash stream.
Aye.
I definitely do. So I suppose the first thing that caught me was, if I can take a step away from the Sony Microsoft thing, was just how good Bethesda's presentation was. And Fallout 4, now I haven't played any of the previous Fallout games, which, may or may not surprise folks. I haven't played any of them. And it just blew me away with everything that you were getting in Fallout 4. And it was one of those things where a presentation, a bit of CGI trailer and a bit of game demo, and it's like, wow, I really want to play that game. And if you're looking at something that hit the spot, so definitely Fallout kind of hit the mark for me. Microsoft had an amazing press conference. It was just bang, bang, bang. Game after game after game after game. There was nothing you'll notice about media and television and
Yeah.
features,
Oh,
so
they've definitely learned from past mistakes.
Yeah, so for all that, I actually think that those features are actually a really cool and useful part of what you get when you get an Xbox One. It was just game after game after game, and there were just 2 or 3 genuine jaw-dropping moments. For me, the big one, which I know we're going to come on to talk about, was backwards compatibility, and that was just really out of left field, unexpected. And if you were looking for a crowd pleaser, there was people on their feet stomping and in the auditorium, amazing stuff. But if you look at the lineup of games for 2015, and I think for me this is one of the big differentiators between what Sony have done and what Microsoft have done. The 2015 lineup for Microsoft looks pretty damn awesome. You've got Halo 5 Guardians, which even seeing the stuff for Warzone looks completely amazing. Never mind what the actual campaign might be or the story might be. And I think they've probably not demonstrated that to its best light, but we've still got Gamescom to look forward to for that. So Halo 5, you've got Tomb Raider. Loved the last Tomb Raider game, which was the reboot, and I think the new one looks really interesting. And from what I can gather, the demo we saw at the Microsoft presentation didn't have a scratch on the private depth that were being given to some of the media journalists at E3 later on. So that's
I'd heard about that. Some of that was they basically didn't show next to anything close to what they were getting hands on with.
Yeah, and so that looks pretty amazing. You've got Forza, so Forza 6. I'm not sure how different Forza 6 is going to be from Forza 5, apart from like puddle nighttime driving. So I'm not sure what to get there, but that's going to keep racers, I think, happy. And there was a big announcement today about some of the cars that are going to be included in that. So again, that looks interesting. And then you start to run into the other titles that are coming. Things like Cuphead, which seems to have people really excited.
Cuphead actually looked really good. I was surprised at that one, to be fair.
Yeah, it looks like sort of original Mickey Mouse animation style game, but as a shooter.
Aye. Essentially, that's what the developers have been talking about while the game was playing as well. They're taking the idea of old 40s cartoons with like old Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck and stuff like that, with the big hands and the colours and stuff. And made all the enemies the same kind of like characters that you'd get in those kind of cartoons, but made it a really fun, difficult looking platformer.
So I mean, and I'm sure I've missed out 2 or 3 key games, but I believe Microsoft has got 7 games, first-party games, exclusive to Xbox One, happening holiday 2015, as they say, and they've got backwards compatibility. So if you're sitting out there on an Xbox 360 and you're saying, is now the time to go to a next-gen console, then for me, there's no question. The answer is yes.
Definitely. I mean, like you said, you missed a couple there as well. So, you're missing Fable Legends, the Gears of War games.
Yes.
So, obviously, you mentioned Halo 5.
Did any of you guys play any of the Gears beta?
I did. I played a few
Yeah.
matches. But
And-
obviously
and-
that's the Gears. That's the Gears Ultimate.
That's the reboot.
Well, not so much the reboot as it's a remaster of the original Gears of War.
Yeah.
So I mean
I
that
just
was
thought
literally just multiplayer maps. So
yeah, and I thought it just looked really slick, fast, good animation, and you're thinking to yourself, this is still what, a year away probably from reaching people, and I thought that that looked good. Gears 4, which is a 2016 title, so I think if you look at that, and I know people get really excited about Sony's conference. I haven't seen it in full, so I can't talk about it with the same degree of.
Sony had some
attention
alright stuff, but they were showing off a lot of the same stuff they had last year. I mean, they had No Man's Land, or was it No Man's Sky?
No Man's Sky, yeah.
No Man's Sky. They showed that again, and it was essentially almost the same stuff they'd showed last year.
Yeah,
It was good, and it was jaw dropping at the same time. That the fact that you've essentially got an entire universe that's made, and it would take you an entire lifetime to explore every world that's in it. But
yeah,
they told us all that stuff last year. So what difference does it make this year that they're still saying, right, well, this game's still coming and we're still making it?
And it's still not coming until 2016, is it?
Yeah, it's still next year. So I mean, they're
Aye.
taking at least 2 years to make it.
the only really new
So-
thing they did show was The Last Guardian, which he started with, and they showed a bit more of Uncharted 4 and a new
they had-
Guerrilla game.
Yeah.
Sure, and I think that, and was it Shenmue 3?
Shenmue 3 as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Which they're
So-
crowdfunding. To be fair, I
What's the
think the way that they've
crowdfunding
done
one?
this, the way I think they're doing this with the crowdfunding is not to get enough money to make the game. It's
To
to
gauge the interest.
well, it's one to gauge the interest. I mean, obviously, they within 8 hours they'd already tripled the amount of money they needed for it. So there is enough interest for it. There has been for 10 years, 15? Is it 15 years that game's been waiting for a new
Yeah,
version? So, it's not so much that. It's I think this 2 million that they were looking for would be a start off, and they'll say, right, we've got the 2 million, but I think they were looking for that as an excuse to turn around and say to Sony, right, if we make this money using the crowdfunding, will you give us the rest to get the game made? And Sony have turned around and said, right, if you can get that 2 million, then we'll give you the rest of the money to produce it.
yeah.
Did anybody
I mean,
else
they clearly
find
made
the
that
idea
money.
of? Did anybody else find the idea of a crowdfunder appeal in the middle of a major console company's presentation?
See, that's why I
That's
think they did that though, because it's the biggest way of getting that name out. I mean, obviously there are hundreds of millions of people wanting Shenmue 3. There has been for like I said 15 years. So I think that's the way they've been able to do it. They'll turn around and say, right, we'll show you in the middle of the PlayStation presentation, and it's basically the biggest way, because there are so many people watching the PlayStation and Xbox presentations that where else could you get that kind of attention in one go?
I don't
I
disagree.
mean,
Will.
the only other
just
place
thought it
would
was
be like Super Bowl
thought it
type.
jarred. Yeah,
It was strange. I
jarred.
mean, it definitely did come. It did raise some flags with me when it came up, and I'm thinking, well, why are they trying to crowdfund in the middle of a presentation like that?
Yeah, I didn't agree with it personally, but that's for another day.
There were definitely some weirder things in the this year's E3 as well. I mean, Nintendo stuff, which was a bit weird. I mean, who was the guy with the weird fucking thing on his head that came up onto the stage? Who was that?
But did Nintendo traditionally just have really poor E3s, don't they?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, they won it last year just because of the comedy, the stuff that they came away with in their actual comedy. They because of that, and they tried to do it again this year as well with the puppets, which I thought was a fantastic idea. It was the way they were. What was his name? Who's the Nintendo president again? He's going into each of the rooms and making sure that everybody's ready, and Reggie's doing press-ups and he's like, my puppet body is ready. I mean, that guy became an actual meme on his own just by doing that the first year.
Right.
So I mean, he's basically just following a tradition of it now. But the rest of the presentation for Nintendo, in my opinion, was really poor. I mean, they showed off next to nothing, which I get. I mean, basically they came to this year's E3 and showed off everything that they could that's releasing this year. They weren't going ahead and showing everything that's coming out next year and the year after and that kind of thing, like all the rest of the developers were.
Yeah.
That's why they didn't show off as much.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me was that the guy,
to
the
come
weird
back to
Japanese Frank Sidebottom that came onto the stage with this thing on his head and started talking, and nobody had a clue who he was.
right. I think for me the point I guess I was trying to tease out, Will, was that when you compare the lineups in terms of what Microsoft presented this year versus Sony, which is normally the kind of head-to-head that people would look at.
Yeah.
Nothing in Sony's first-party stable is 2050. Nothing. And you've got 7 first-party titles for Xbox One in 2015. Now, that's why I think, to be honest, Sony jumped all over the chance to get Call of Duty as you get your DLC first.
Mhm.
And I presume they're also going to try and get some sort of payback off the competitive gaming side of things as well, because that's where the competitive gaming stuff will be played on. But there's nothing first party.
Yeah.
If you want to play Call of Duty, you've got a choice of consoles. If you want to play Destiny, you've got a choice of consoles. Yeah, you can get some stuff earlier. But to me, I never thought the early DLC was a big deal for Call of Duty anyway.
No, to be
Yeah.
fair, I mean, Call of Duty, I mean, most people that know me know that I'm not a big fan of Call of Duty. For the past few years, obviously, I've been doing games writing, etc. So I've been in the position where I can review. But I mean, I've had Activision send me copies of Call of Duty every few years for the last few, every year for the last few years. Sorry, and in my opinion, they've increasingly got worse over the years. It seems they keep rehashing the same stuff. They keep treading over the same tired stories, and they're not being as
They're not as creative.
yeah, they're not being as creative. So I mean, they're essentially I think they've got to the point where now Activision knows that people will spend a fortune on them every year, regardless of it, because they want to play the multiplayer. For people that like the Treyarch games, they're looking for zombies mode.
Yeah.
That's essentially what's selling the Treyarch games now. The fact that they've got zombies.
Yes, I
Or
totally
something
agree.
similar to that. And now they've started putting not so much zombies, but a kind of version of into the what do you call them? The Sledgehammer ones as well.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming that now Activision are just going to demand for the studios that make Call of Duty, we need this as an extra part because this is what's selling.
We need zombies.
We need zombies or something similar.
Yeah.
The thing is, the thing is, it could be only just Activision that has the month on the PS4, like the advancement in the month on the PS4. It could be just Activision because they have Destiny on the PS4, and it's really like PS4 only kind of thing, even though it's
well, it'll be timed exclusives, but it's never going to be. I mean, Activision are the kind of studio that they won't put all their eggs into one basket when it comes to that. Obviously, they moved the Call of Duty presentation over to PlayStation because they're making more money at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the past few years, Xbox have made the money, and that's why they've had Call of Duty on the Xbox stage.
I think the other developers in the Call of Duty franchise, they could be Xbox still, I think it could be just Activision will be in the
Well,
PS4.
Activision are the publishers. They're the ones that make. They're the ones that own the rights to Call of Duty. It's the third-party studios that they bring in to do the work for them.
Yeah.
Which is obviously Treyarch, Sledgehammer, and Infinity Ward. So, I mean, that's essentially where the money's going. Activision know what side their bread's buttered, so they obviously said PlayStation will give you this if you put us on your stage, etc. So,
and there's no way they're not going to do versions for Xbox, not with the install base that you've got out there. With
no. I mean, there's enough people on the other consoles as well that they're clearly going to have to make them for them as well because they'd lose too much money not doing it.
Sure. I'm going to say something which I think might be a little bit controversial here, is that I think Call of Duty's done. I think they're out of ideas. Hey, we've got jetpacks because hey, Titanfall did jetpacks. Everybody seemed to like
because
that,
everybody's
you know?
everybody's got jetpacks. We've got wall running because somebody else done wall running. We've got this.
Again, Titanfall.
Robots.
So
Exactly.
I just think that they're out of ideas, and I think if they really wanted to do something innovative and challenging and do it really, really well, I think they need to go back to WW2 or Vietnam and to do a Call of Duty there.
Yeah, do an old Call of Duty. Don't
Yeah.
stop pissing about with the future stuff, because I mean, there's half a dozen different first-person shooter games that have the first-person genre. They have the future settings. I mean, most of the Ghost Recons are all future settings.
Yeah. And I think for me, Titanfall is still one of the very best shooters on Xbox One.
Yeah, definitely.
That's and it's still got thousands of people playing it every single day.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's never a day you can't go on there and see at least a few full servers. So.
Aye. So from my perspective, you know, what a shooter. There's shooters out there.
I mean, the only thing that Titanfall failed for me is the fact that it didn't have a single player campaign. Because you could, it was single player in the sense that you played through it as yourself, but not in the sense that all the rest of the characters were AI controlled. You had to have other people online playing with you.
Yeah, and there
was no decent actual workable story from that.
There is a good story there too. This is the thing that I don't understand. There's a really good story there that they could explore.
They could do. But the problem there is, I think that obviously the guys who made Titanfall were the original guys from Call of Duty. Yeah. They know multiplayer. They know it well because essentially Call of Duty is the biggest multiplayer game in the world, on consoles at least.
For sure.
So they know. I think they went to Activision with the idea that we want to, or not Activision, sorry. They went to EA with the idea that we can make this game, we can make it as big as Call of Duty, but it's multiplayer only. And EA have said, right, you need to have some sort of single player in there, otherwise it won't work. It will just be a multiplayer game, and people won't jump into that as easily. So I think that they've they've essentially just thrown in a quick campaign to show you the controls. See, like you get most games now, and the first 5-10 minutes of the game is part of the story, but it's showing you how to play at the same time.
It's a tutorial,
essentially, yeah. I mean, you get most games now where the first 5-10 minutes of the game are the tutorial. While you're learning the buttons, you're still playing the game. Essentially, they've done the same thing, but they've gave you a kind of fudged.
Full campaign.
Yeah, well, they've gave you a kind of single player campaign, but at the same time, the campaign goes in this thing. It doesn't matter if you win or lose. You're still moving the story ahead. It's moving the whole story forward, regardless of whether you win or lose. And that's where they failed for me. They didn't give you have to win or you have to go back and try again.
Yeah,
but I think that's the opportunity. You've now got an IP, Titanfall, and some really good, well-working game mechanics. Games fun to play. I mean, Titanfall's a game I can go and drop in and do 15 minutes and have a blast. I don't need 20 minutes to warm up and get going. I can get into it right away and get on with it. We may be slightly off topic here, I suppose. If we're talking I suppose for me, one of my disappointments was nothing about Titanfall 2, but I'm wondering whether we might see something with Gamescom.
And that's Gamescom, in my opinions, where some of the stuff's been kept back. We obviously know that Scalebound. Is it Scalebound or Scalebound?
Scalebound, which is that's the Dragon game.
Aye, that's the Dragon one. Aye, we know for definite that they've kept that one. Microsoft kept that one back because that is one of their
new IP.
It's new IP, and it was shown last year. Just a quick trailer of it last year. So I'm quite excited to see what they're going to do with this, because this was one of the games that I came out at E3 last year. Looking forward to playing.
Yeah.
Then Quantum Break is also, that's March 2016, I believe, and the other one that they've teased so far is Crackdown, I think.
Right.
And they were up front and said you're not going to see anything about these at E3. These are Gamescom titles, and there has to be more there. There has to be a rabbit out the hat for Phil Spencer to do his presentation. So I guess we'll just need to wait and see what's going to happen.
That Titanfall 2 as well. It's not going to be Xbox One exclusive. It's going to be coming to other consoles as well. It was only the first Titanfall, as far as I'm aware, for Xbox.
I think Xbox had paid for console exclusivity when it came to that one, which I think EA were quite happy to do because they were going to make money on an untested game regardless.
Yeah.
Now that they know that Titanfall's as big as it is, EA are quite happy to say, no, we're going to put this out.
I think what you might get with Titanfall 2 is cross-platform play between Windows and Xbox One.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Yeah.
I was kind of apprehensive going into E3 this year as well, thinking that if Xbox do what they did last year and prattle on about too much, they were going to show too much of the multimedia side of stuff, which was going to lose it for them because they did it last year and it was TV this and TV that and this, that and the rest of it, and you're like, well, that's really not what we're here for. We're here to see the games. That's why we're here.
And I think that probably most strongly reflected on the 2013 when it was Don Matrick was running the show. He's out within weeks of E3. In comes Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer delivers the 2014 one, which was mostly games. But I believe he's talked about them having IP in development in first-party studios due to release all the way through to 2017. So there's a big slate of games coming out from Microsoft.
Aye, definitely. I mean, this year, we know they've already been talking about it since at least Christmas, as far as I know, that Windows 10 is going to have compatibility with Xbox One games. So you're going to be able to play. I don't know if it's going to be you can fire an Xbox One game into your PC as long as it's got a Blu-ray drive and just play it from there.
I don't think so.
Honestly, I don't see it happening because then you wouldn't need your Xbox One at all. You could just use a PC with a Blu-ray drive. But I think as long as you own the game, you're potentially going to be able to play it on a PC that's capable.
So I think the way that I think it'll work is, well, you've got your Xbox One, I'm sitting on a PC, and we can play each other because it's cross-platform.
Yeah.
Right. So from that perspective, it kind of brings down some of the barriers. I think it'll only work with specific games.
It'll probably only be first-party games. It'll only be Microsoft Studio stuff because they're not, as far as I know, or as far as I'd say third-party developers are concerned, they're not going to want the ability to download and potentially redistribute pirated copies of their titles.
From my perspective, I think it's like I've bought a game, you've bought a game, I happen to be on a PC, you happen to be on an Xbox, we can play each other with the table and stuff like that. I don't think the intention is to make games more widely distributed, but I think it's more about that cross-platform.
No, I know what you mean there. I mean, what I'm thinking is it's probably going to be more first-party games that are owned by Microsoft because they're obviously quite happy for this to happen because this is what they want to happen, but I'm thinking studios like EA and Activision might not sign up for their games to be multi-platform because
then just another version.
Well, like that, aye, but at the same time, having your, like, say you're Activision, you're not going to want your game going to PC because PC files are far easier to get a hold of. Essentially, you're going to need to download that game to a PC, which makes it easily accessible so that you can copy it, pirate it, and send it to someone else who can play it for free. So I don't know whether or not there'll be a lot of third-party developers signing up to this unless Microsoft can assure them that there will be zero piracy, which I can't see happening. Because PCs are far too easy to pirate anything, pretty much anything on. I've never seen a program that hasn't been able to get a hold of for free.
No, I think you're probably quite right there, Will. But yeah, I suppose that for me is look at the first party stables between Sony and Microsoft. I think Microsoft comes out as a clear winner. Not to say that Sony isn't doing exciting stuff or interesting stuff. I think just in terms of the next sort of 12 to 18 months, I think Microsoft seems to have plenty in hand.
Yeah, definitely. What else did you like the look of at the Microsoft one? I mean, I'm quite interested to see how HoloLens manages to work. So, what did you think?
I think for me there was just a tempo of games. There's a lot of games coming through ID Xbox, which is kind of where we get into Cuphead and other games like that. So there's a lot of games going to be coming down the pipe for you to play. No shortage of choice, plenty of material to get to. I think from the stuff that really caught my eye was certainly Halo. And the thing, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to see this, but the HoloLens demo for Halo is basically a briefing to go and play Warzone.
Right.
So you go into what is a mock-up of UNSC.
Right. Aye. So you'd basically walk into some kind of briefing area.
And they pop a HoloLens on you. You go to a briefing table, and up out of the table rises Sarah Palmer, Chief Spartan of Halo 4,
Right.
who then briefs you on Warzone and tells you all about it. And people are freaking out about this, saying it is the most amazing thing. Now, it has no gaming application per se. It is just purely a look at what we can do with HoloLens.
Right. Yeah, well, I mean, it's something they've put together to show gamers exactly the kind of potential that HoloLens could have. I mean, at the same time, it would be quite good that all I have to do is look at a wall and be able to play a game rather than have to have a TV, which I think, because I mean, obviously at the same time, all you'd have to do then is put your hands in front of you and make the screen bigger or smaller to suit the surface that you're looking at. So I mean, there is definite applications when it comes to the HoloLens as a gaming device, but at the same time, I mean, what I'd been worried about is when we seen the presentation, the camera was shown as what the person was seeing. Yes. But it could easily be that the camera was shown a bit more than the HoloLens was, and we don't know that because we can't see through the HoloLens.
So what I understand is,
but I mean, if people have been going on about how good this Halo presentation was, then I'm actually quite excited to get. I mean, I'm planning on getting one anyway. I've got a Kinect 2 here as well, which barely ever gets used other than to tell the Xbox to record stuff because I don't use it for anything else. Scottish accents don't work. So at the same time, it's a piece of technology that I was told would have to come with the Xbox, otherwise the Xbox wouldn't work. Which now, like a year, nearly 2 years down the line, we find out the Xbox was full of crap. Because they have sold the Xbox without it, and it doesn't need it because you can sit with a headset on and it'll do the exact same stuff. But at the same time, I mean, HoloLens is going to be one of those things that it's not going to be able to connect to your Xbox. It's going to have to connect to your PC. So you're going to have Windows 10, and your PC is going to have to be capable of playing Xbox One games. So it's going to be slightly more powerful than the average PC.
Yeah, I remember as well when they were introducing the Xbox One when it first was revealed. When Phil Spencer and the rest were saying Xbox On and stuff, it was turning the Xboxes at home on and off, and it was messing with the home.
I remember that. I think it was 2 years ago when they were showing off the Xbox Ones as well.
Yeah.
We actually had to disconnect the Kinects that were connected to each of the ones inside because people were running around shouting Xbox off, and it was turning all the demonstration models off.
Yeah.
They were essentially just walking past some of the Xbox only stands and just shouting Xbox off, and the thing was just going. all these Xboxes were all just turning themselves off.
Yeah. No,
But they had to
think,
disconnect the Kinects for some of the games because people were just systematically walking around all the bush, turning them all off, and as soon as they turned them back off, they came down and do it again.
Yeah, we could have a whole other conversation about Kinect and its experience in the Xbox One. I think that's maybe for another day. But you know, I think what was probably the message you get from this E3 is that Kinect's there and it's important. I don't know if anybody's seen the demo that they have released for the new dashboard, which will include Cortana.
Yeah, I've heard Cortana's going to be in it, but I think it's just another gimmick because I mean obviously they've already rolled that out into the Windows 8 phone, so it's just going to be a new way of searching as far as I'm aware.
Well, for example, if you
which I'm hoping is going to be the actual Cortana voice and not just one that they've put together like they did with the Windows, the Windows phones.
The demo that I've seen it's the actual Cortana voice, and it gives you a lot more sophistication in terms of your voice commands. But we'll wait and see on that. But I think it could be.
If it works, then I'll definitely be giving it a go. But at the same time, they're still 2 years. They're nearly 2 years down the line, and they're still having trouble getting the Xbox to understand a Scottish accent. So it's going to be one of those things. It may only work for certain areas of the world. Right. So Sony, how did you find the E3 Sony conference? What kind of stuff did you enjoy from that one?
Overall, I was disappointed.
In what way?
Just thought they would show a lot more games as such. You know, there's a lot of indie titles.
Well, I mean, Sony did, when they first brought out the PS4, said that they would be pushing a lot further into the indie market because Xbox pretty much dominated it last generation. So
yeah,
they are looking a lot of that stuff in. But I think at the same time, a lot of the games that, like David said, Sony were showing off a lot of third-party games because they don't have a lot of first-party ready.
Yeah, they're not really taking advantage of the power that the PS4 has. It's more, you know, indies which can run on any of the machines. That's my thoughts.
Yeah. That in the back to make this a game if you make it a PlayStation exclusive.
Mm. They seem to be really pushing No Man's Sky as well.
They are.
Uh,
I mean, I mean, admittedly, it is a fantastic looking game, but at the same
yeah.
time, they may be putting too many eggs into that basket.
And the Last Guardian as well. They're putting their eggs in it as well. Eggs in that basket.
Aye,
Um,
aye, definitely.
they're it's been in limbo for a few years as well. I think 4 or 5 years. It's actually
It
meant
has been about for a while.
it's meant to come out in the PS3 originally, and now they've said it's PS4.
Aye, I mean, they could have seen the trend and we want to push indie games and have decided, right, well, if you want, we'll keep funding you while you make this game bigger than PlayStation 3. So
Yeah,
it's possible that they asked the developers to push it back so that they could make it a PlayStation 4 exclusive and give them a lot more power to play with and make it a bigger game, because maybe the game wasn't capable of being as big as it is going to be now.
yeah. Um, there was a few other things that I had in my head there. Yeah,
Okay.
we could talk about it all day.
Yeah, we could. A couple of hours worth of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Sure.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
So
I yeah yeah. For,
okay, so
for
I'll take a pitch at this and I think Microsoft on this guy. When you got the Xbox 360 from the original Xbox, one of the deals was its high definition graphics. And the Xbox 360 was giving you your high definition graphics for the first time. And it was a noticeable, visible, tangible change to gaming on Xbox to Xbox 360. You roll that forward, look at Xbox 360 against Xbox One. Graphically, yeah, there have been some improvements, but it's not that kind of salt in between price difference. And so, what fans I think are looking for is what is the reason that I want to move from my Xbox 360 to the Xbox One? Because I've got a ton of games here which I have bought and invested over time. I enjoy playing them. Why do I want to change my console and then no longer be able to? The Microsoft strategy is is, do you know what? You can, and you're able to do that. And so I think what backwards compatibility does is it takes away a barrier, real or imagined, that a lot of gamers have had for why I don't want an Xbox One because I've already got an Xbox 360 and it's a great console. And I think from Microsoft's perspective, that's why they're doing it. They're going to move people to next gen and say, hey, you can still play old gen. Microsoft's take on it is really clever because the developers don't actually need to do anything other than say,
yeah, they just need to sign off on it, because most of the games that they're going to be putting onto backwards compatibility, they already have digital copies for.
Yeah.
The only thing you need as a gamer to get your backwards compatibility game is to have the original disc, put it into your Xbox One so that your Xbox One can tell that you own it. It'll then contact a digital server and download the ROM.
Yeah.
Because Xbox One or Xbox already have this digital copy that they can send to you. So there is next to nothing that the developers need to do other than sign off on, yes, you can make this game a backwards compatibility title.
And for me then, it's a really smart move, because then the reasons for the games not being in the back catalogue is, well, those sort of publishers have refused to do it.
Yes.
And so
they'll put the ball into the developers' courts, and they've said, right, if this game doesn't make it to backwards compatibility, it's not Xbox's fault, it's the developers. Go and speak to the developers about it.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the amount of tweets that any one developer that says no is going to hit?
Yeah.
For sure.
I'm 50-50 on it, because there's games that I still love to play, like Bad Company 2. It was my first ever PS3 game, and I still would love to play that, but they should really leave the past to the past and concentrate on the future of gaming. In my opinion.
I think in the terms of Microsoft doing it, I think it's good for them, because they are far behind PlayStation at the moment in sales.
Yeah.
This is what's going to change it for people, because then now Xbox 360 gamers are going to say, right, well, I can get the Xbox One, I can play all the new titles on Xbox One, but I can also play a back catalogue that I've got sitting in my loft or my garage or underneath the bed. I can now crack all those games that I used to love back out and start playing them all over again. And I can also sell my Xbox 360, or I can put it in one of the kids' rooms, or I can trade it in for some new games for one of the new things, or I can trade it in for a whole load of old 360 games that I didn't get round the first time and can now play them.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Microsoft at the very base level, I think that they've done this in the way, and just in the hopes that they're going to win back some of their fans.
Yeah.
For no other.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't see it as a last. No, I don't see that, Ricky, but I can understand why folks might want to look at it.
Yeah.
I think what it does do is it sounds the death of the game. So, with the possible exception of Gears being, one that will certainly, I think, benefit from a current generation remake. If you look at why would I want to go and get a remastered version of this game when I already own this game and I can play it on my Xbox One as a backwards compatible title? So I think what it will do is it will reduce this prevalence at the moment to do remastered games. I think it's a good thing. I think it will allow us to focus on more new IP, new games, iterations of kind of well-known franchises, and take people away from doing the kind of whole remaster thing. I understand why they did it before backwards compatibility, but I think a lot of the remasters disappear if you've got backwards compatible titles.
Yeah, well, I mean that's essentially a good thing as well, because it does force developers to make new IP. We're going to have to keep making new games rather than we'll make some money out of another game. I mean, look at Sleeping Dogs, Tomb Raider, and The Last of Us. Within a year and a half, 2 years, each of those games had a remaster for the new console. Now, I think, as far as I'm aware, The Last of Us, as far as I'm aware, or as far as I've spoke to certain people, yourself included, Ricky, I think The Last of Us was supposed to be a PlayStation 4 game, but they dropped the resolution for it to PlayStation 3 just to make some extra money out of it.
Yeah. To be fair,
that's why the remaster came out so quickly after the original.
Yeah. To be fair, The Last of Us and Sleeping Dogs and Tomb Raider, they're all really good games. So I don't mind them having a remaster, but like, I get that.
I get that a remaster sometimes just their way of reintroducing the same game to a secondary console, which is what they did for some of them. Obviously, they were on PlayStation 3, then they moved over to the next gen consoles. So, I mean, obviously, The Last of Us was an exclusive, but the other two weren't. So, but I mean, Sleeping Dogs, as far as I know, was the only game that had a decent amount of time before re-releasing it. The other two were still fairly new, and a lot of people didn't have. I mean, I was one of the ones that were on the fence about Tomb Raider because I'd played it at Eurogamer the year before it released, and I wasn't a fan of it because of the amount of QuickTime events that are in it. So, certain things, I mean, just hit this button to do this when any other time in the game you're capable of doing it for yourself, so why did you have to hit the button then? So I wasn't a fan of it at the time, but I work in Asda, so Asda had reduced the price of the remastered edition to £17, and I'm like, well, for £17 I can't really complain for a £42 game, so I got it then, and I actually really enjoyed it because they had, as far as I know, they must have taken in some criticism from the original demos and stuff, and they'd actually taken a lot of the QuickTime events that I had witnessed in the original demo. They'd taken all them out, so it was a far more enjoyable game.
Yeah,
at the same time, I didn't enjoy the fact that the game had only been out something like 8 months, and then there was a remastered edition for the next gen consoles. Which leads me, like Ricky was saying as well, it seems to be that some of these games may have been made for new consoles, but they needed either more money or more time, and that's why they dropped the graphics and brought them out on the old gen consoles just to try and fill in the gaps.
Look at the argument of The Last of Us. The reason they did the remaster was because a lot of people had moved to the PlayStation 4 from like Xbox, and that's the reason they said they had done the remaster. Because people hadn't played The Last of Us because they were on Xbox 360.
Yeah. Yeah, but how much can you actually trust PR companies though?
Yeah, but that's what they were saying. But like, I obviously know different.
Yeah, and it's been reduced just to barely make it. But I mean that's obviously why we keep having to get new generations of consoles, because I mean look at the original games that came on the Xbox 360 when it first released. The graphics were, how do you want to explain this? A bit questionable, not so much questionable, but far worse than what we expect now. The resolution was a lot lower. Graphic fidelity itself was a lot lower as well. It was it was that way that we'd moved up from Xbox 360 and PlayStation 2. The original Xbox and PlayStation 2 to the PlayStation 3 and 360, and graphics were just a wee bit more than what we'd expected on the old consoles. And then you jump 5-6 years into the life cycle of the 360 and the PlayStation 3, and graphics were far better. It was such a jump in comparison. You get to the end of the life, the developers who have been making games for these consoles for the last 7-8 years, they know inside out the hardware, and they know exactly what they're able to make and squeeze out of the processors and the RAM that they're capable of using. So that's why we need new generations of consoles. We have to move them on so that these developers can start making games. Xbox One, PlayStation 4, slight jump when it comes to graphics between the last gen and this gen.
The previous gen.
Just a slight, previous gen and this gen. It's a slight jump, but
yeah.
Considering how far we're going to be able to get, I mean, as far as Xbox were concerned, this is going to be at least a 10-year console. So can you imagine in 10 years' time what that? PlayStation 4 probably is as well. So can you imagine in 10 years' time the kind of graphics that developers are going to be able to squeeze out of these things? I mean, obviously the consoles. I have. That is beautiful. I mean, that's basically a love letter to PT. For those who don't know, PT was the playable trailer, which was supposed to be the teaser for the Silent Hills game, which was sadly kicked offline and stuck in the bin due to Konami having some issues, and we're all sad about that, because that game was going to herald back to the beauty that was the horror games of the early noughties, which most of us loved. Right. Well, it depends on the studio, you ask, because there are certain studios who just stick to the games that they know. They won't move from that because
Activision.
They've got their niche. Well, I mean, Activision's a publisher; they're not really a studio, but they have their studios who do nothing other than the games that they've asked to do. Call of Duty, obviously, is one of their big ones. They've also got Blizzard, who only do certain games. So it's, I mean, you get certain studios who have found their niche. I mean, obviously, Codemasters, they're racing games. They do racing games, and they do them well, and that's why they stick to that niche. But I mean, certain studios, I mean, like Rare are obviously an in-house studio for Microsoft now, and they make a variety of games. When the 360 was midway through its life, Rare were making nothing but Kinect games. I mean, they obviously make the Kinect sports games and stuff like that. They were into that because that's what they were doing at the time. But I mean, I don't even know. Is it released yet? The Rare bundle, which is like 30 games.
I think it's October. And
right, that's 30 games. But I mean, it runs from games like GoldenEye to Banjo-Kazooie to a couple of racing games and some other stuff as well. So I mean, Rare are one of those studios that they can adapt themselves to any type of game that they're asked to make. I mean, obviously you could see from the Killer Instinct game that they re-released as well. So I mean, it's. I mean, you could give them that list and say, I want to make a new game for each and every one of these, and they'd be capable of doing that.
Sure. I think, if we're talking Rare, we have to mention Sea of Thieves, how interesting
that looks. Absolutely, that game looks fantastic.
It's game, but I don't think it's a MOBA, but it's obviously multiplayer. Kind of feels like it's Destiny writ large kind of scale in terms of interactivity.
It looks huge, but at the same time, when I was watching it originally, it looked a lot like the Pirates of the Caribbean game that was in development and ended up being kicked. It's essentially. I mean, Sea of Thieves is technically. It looks, to be fair, to be around about the same time as obviously Pirates of the Caribbean would have been set when the Caribbean was full of pirates, and that's where they got the name and stuff from. But I mean, it's it's one of those things that it's a popular genre. Because obviously the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise started off as it was like a theme park show thing in Disney World, and they ended up with 4 movies, but I think 5's the fifth. They're making a 5th one, so they've managed to squeeze 5 films out of it, and it's only a matter of time that someone actually tried to make a game of it as well.
Sure. I think the fact that Bear's taking a crack at it gives me some confidence that it will at the very least be very interesting. I think if we wanted to talk to the creativity question, Ricky, for me, I think what you've had is there's a period after a new console where the development houses, other than the first party companies and the major publishers, what they're trying to do is get hold of what can the machine do, what's it capable of. Whereas they need a little bit of time, and so the idea of kind of playing around with remasters to understand what you can do graphically with stuff is fine. People, the engineers, the developers start to get to grips with that, understand what they're doing, and that's fine. I think, you know, if you want to look at you know, creativity, there's Recore, the new IP that again Microsoft demoed as I think a 2016 title, which looks
Recore looks fantastic. That game was one of the top ones for me. I mean, I've heard a lot of people go on about it. It wasn't really what they were expecting.
That's a good thing for me.
I mean, obviously it's Kenji Inafune. I can never actually pronounce his surname, to be fair, but I mean, they did interviews with him, and they tried to figure out exactly what the game's going to be about, and he's keeping his cards close to his chest when it comes to this game.
I think so. So I think what you're starting to see, I think if you look at Microsoft's first party stable with the games that they have let and developed and the resources they into, I think there's an argument to be made that says that actually from a new IP and creativity perspective, Microsoft, I think, are on the front foot right now. There's lots of stuff to do. There's new IP. We'll hear even more, I guess, at Gamescom. But you know, Scale Down, Crackdown, Quantum Break. I know we've been looking at Quantum Break for a couple of years.
I think we're going to be looking at Quantum Break for another couple of years as well. The way they keep pushing it back.
Well, you know, there is a.
It'll be Microsoft's last garden. It will be. They keep.
Yeah.
I think there's obviously going to be remasters and things like that, but I am actually very excited for the next couple of years because of the potential of what the consoles have. If you look at how big a leap that the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 made from the start to now, it's almost like lifelike graphics. If only they could get the frames per second up from like 30, you know. Games are,
Oh, you sound like a PC purist, Danny. Frames per second never matters. It's only the people who want to complain that matter.
But frames per second make a better playing experience, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's an argument for another podcast.
Yeah, but I.